Good evening. It's Paranormal Science Lab Live. I'm Lisa.
I'm Lisa too.
Oh no, I am in trouble now.
Without the hair.
Otherwise known as John, I hope.
Only I spell it L-Y-S-A, not L-I-S-A. So, special kind of Lisa.
Oh boy. Someone please call 911.
Oh, don't call 911. Call 411. Get the info, dog.
We're glad to have everyone with us tonight. We have a very interesting guest with us tonight. It's Jason Offutt. Jason is a researcher in the paranormal and author, and has quite a background of researching the paranormal in the Midwest. How are you doing, Jason?
Hi, I'm Lisa.
Okay.
Hi, Lisa.
Yeah.
I think we've got a thing going.
Yeah. Hey, I'm doing great. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
Well, we're glad that you came, and will you pay attention?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, my alter ego here is having Tourette's syndrome or something.
Sorry, I have not said one cuss word. It's coming, but I haven't said one cuss word.
That too. Jason, we'll try to get halfway serious here, but not too serious, and because I know you're not really. I know you like to get around too, so that's good. It's going to fit into my feeling. Anyone with a straight jacket, bring over, please.
Yes.
I think I may need it for him tonight.
Sounds like fun.
Jason, can you tell everybody how you got interested in paranormal?
Well, it happened when I was a kid. I grew up in a 120-year-old farmhouse. No, well, it was a two-room schoolhouse at one point. And anyway, we lived 6 miles out in the country, and I was basically alone one day. My mom was outside doing something in the garden. My dad was working out in the field, and I walked out into the living room. I was about 8 or 9 years old, and I went into a hallway where we kept books. And when I walked into this hallway, there was a little boy standing there staring at me. And I was the only little boy within about a 6 mile radius. And I was pretty confused, and I mean, I could still see the kid. He had brown hair, a blue flannel shirt. He wasn't frowning, but he wasn't smiling. He was just staring at me. And I could see the bookshelf through him. And we stood staring at each other. It seemed like a long time, but it could have been 5 seconds for all I know. But he blinked, and I turned around and walked into my bedroom and shut the door. And I'd seen a full-bodied apparition in my house, and that really got me curious as to, okay, these ghosts are real. What let's try and figure out exactly what they are. So it started at a pretty young age.
I'm curious because that's a similar kind of experience that got me interested as well. How did your family react, or did you tell them?
I did not tell them. I didn't tell my mom until I was my late 30s. And
very similar to me.
Yeah, nobody else. I was sitting with my mom and my two older sisters, and they were all surprised. None of them had ever had anything weird happen to them while they lived in the house.
That's odd.
I don't know. Sometimes they do seem to single out certain people. Or,
I guess my family's just weird, man.
We weren't going to mention that.
Well, I mean, if we did have the spirit of a little boy in my house, maybe since I was a little boy, he felt comfortable around me. Maybe that was it.
Well, that's very true. He might have been looking for someone to play with or something.
Very possible, yeah.
Well, it didn't work. He scared the crap out of me.
That's all right. I ran into my grandfather the other day in the hallway. He's been dead for about 12 years. No, literally, I ran right through him.
Yeah. John's house is interesting. It's very crowded.
Yeah, there's a lot of people there.
Well, and it doesn't have to be the house because they can pretty much go anywhere. My mom had always, because I was one of those kids. I watched monster movies on the weekends, and when the Scholastic Book Club order came in, and people were buying books on, where my classmates were buying books about, baseball player biographies. I was buying books about the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot, and my mom, who never had any paranormal occurrence in her life, was at least understood my curiosity, and she passed away 6 years ago. This is my time to say, guys, anybody listening, don't smoke. Lung cancer's a bitch. But anyway, she was in hospice, and it was like the day before she died. She beckoned me to come really close because she couldn't talk very loud, and she said, Jason, don't worry about me. I'm going to be okay. And I said, Mom, I know you're going to be okay. Just don't come back and tell me because you'll scare the shit out of me. Can I say shit?
Sure. Even if it's an internet TV show, we can say shit.
Great.
It
just came out. All right, terrific. Anyway, I told her that, and she promised she wouldn't come back and tell me. And this was about 2 months later. My wife and I were in the basement in different rooms, and I heard her shout, and I ran into the other room because I thought she was hurt. And I asked her what the problem was, and she said, I was just unloading this box, and your mom said my name in my ear. And I yelled at her to go away. I was too busy now. So Mom at least kept her promise to me, but she scared the crap out of my wife.
Well, I hope your mom hears and will come and talk to you. So, what made you decide to go to the next step and start researching and really getting into the field?
Well, I'd always wanted to, but I was a newspaper editor and a newspaper reporter for a very long time, and they kind of frown on covering the paranormal. And if they do ever cover it, they mock the people who've seen a UFO or had any sort of paranormal encounter. And I didn't have the opportunity to write about the paranormal as a journalist. And then I went back to college and got an advanced degree and started teaching journalism at a university. And all of a sudden, I could write about anything I damn well pleased. So I started researching and writing about the paranormal.
You can't say damn. You can
Okay.
say shit, but you can't say damn.
Okay. We needed to set these ground rules to begin with.
Well, I tell you.
And if you're feeling
if you
ever feel uncomfortable,
with them.
if
I
you're
have
feeling
rules.
uncomfortable with me, maybe we should work out a safe word. I don't know.
Would you like the hug?
It was awesome. Yes, that was a great hug.
I'm a hugger.
Yes. Well, what is the most interesting thing that you've researched or investigated in the paranormal field?
Oh, wow. You throw me a topic. I've written about, researched and written about ghosts, UFOs. Some of them were kind of famous cases that I researched. Time travel, a telepathic dog. I've written and researched just about everything.
Tell us about the time travel.
Do you recognize the name Mike Markham?
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
Back in 1995, Art Bell on Coast to Coast. I don't even think it was called Coast to Coast back then. It might have just been the Art Bell show. Read an article that was in the New York Times. It hit the AP wire about a guy named Mike Markham who was 21 years old, lived in Stanberry, Missouri, and he got arrested because he and some friends had stolen some power line transformers because he tried to build a time machine inside his house. And when he turned the machine on, all the power in town went out.
Oops.
So he was arrested, and right after he got out of jail, Art was able to track him down and had an interview with him. And after that interview, his case became pretty famous. People around the country started donating money and equipment to him so he could build his machine legally. And his last appearance on Art was in 1997. He said he had gotten was able to rent a warehouse in Kansas City, Missouri, and he had a man-sized time machine built. And he was planning on jumping through it. And he said, "Art, this might be the last time I talk to you." And then he disappeared.
Seriously disappeared?
Well, yeah, Art couldn't get a hold of him. I was able to track down some of his friends that he had in St. Joseph before he moved down there. They said he literally just disappeared because they were, they'd go out to eat with him, they played video games with him, and he just stopped communicating with him. He didn't. He just abandoned his apartment. He abandoned his rented warehouse. All the stuff was still there. He was just gone.
Yeah, literally just
gone.
Everything there, car keys and everything, and just disappeared. Wow.
Right, and after I had listened to that Art Bell show before, but I was listening to it again on a Somewhere in Time type thing. It was a repeat, and I realized that I had just moved within a half-hour drive away from where Markham did his first time travel experiment.
Wow.
So I started interviewing people who knew him, the arresting officer, the guy who was in charge of public works who went in and was in charge of turning his machine off. I interviewed all those people, and I was actually able to track down Mike Markham. And this guy swore by this. He told me that he built this machine. Well, let me go back for a second. Let me tell you what the machine was. He got his idea. He was sitting in his home, a rental home in Stanberry, Missouri. He built a Jacob's ladder on his kitchen table, and as the electricity was going up the two vertical pieces of metal, he noticed this weird heat signature that was floating above the Jacob's ladder. And he'd been an electronics student, and he knew that they shouldn't have been there. So he did what any guy would do. He picked something up and threw it at it. And it was a finishing screw, and it hit that heat signature and disappeared. And about 10 seconds later, it reappeared and fell on the end of the table.
Interesting.
And at that point, he said, I realized that it was a time machine. And his goal for building a time machine, at least when he was living in that house, was to go 3 days in the future and bring back the lottery numbers. Why not?
Why not?
Anyway, going back to his lab in Kansas City, because he tried it in St. Joe, and his landlord kicked him out because there was a rumor that he was throwing cats through the machine. But the one in Kansas City, he went back step by step with me what happened, and he'd built a very large one that he was going to jump through, but he tested it first by throwing grapefruit through it, and they would disappear. And they would reappear. He'd find him in the parking lot of the warehouse. And this is one of the things a lot of people don't get about time travel, and Hollywood doesn't get with time travel because it's kind of difficult for them to explain, I guess. But if you were able to go through a time machine, you wouldn't end up in the same place you were. Because the Earth is going around. The Earth is going around the sun. Our solar system's going around the Milky Way. You'd probably be in the middle of deep space, depending how far you went. He didn't go very far in the future. He said he went 2 years in the future because he jumped through it. And he said he woke up in a field, and it was winter, and it had been summer when in Kansas City. But he woke up in winter, standing in a field of snow, and he was just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio. He couldn't remember a thing, and he got taken to a homeless shelter, and his memory started gradually coming back to him. And when he finally got his memory back, got a job, got money, he went back to Kansas City and couldn't find any of his equipment, nothing, because somebody else bought the warehouse and got rid of all the stuff.
So what's he doing now?
He works odd jobs and plays a ton of video games.
Unfortunate that he didn't make another go of it.
Well, he's after I wrote an article on him that came out in Nexus magazine. I was contacted by a lot of people who wanted to donate money to him, and I just pushed them on toward him, and he hasn't been talking to anybody. He won't return my emails anymore.
Well, we had a guest on a while back that had been a nurse, a psychiatric nurse, who she talked about an experience she had of someone coming in a coma and waking up, and the things he said and his reaction were so out of place, not typical for that situation, that she wondered if he was a time traveler, because he was very calm, and the first thing he said was, "What year is it?" So maybe there are.
I wake up from sleeping and ask what year it is. I'm hoping. But I like zip forward like a few years. It'd be kind of fun. Well, I'm really looking forward to when they are able to like recreate body parts, so I can have like some crazy stuff done in my body, sort of crazy arm or something.
Cybernetic.
Yeah, super strong. Smell is everything.
Smell is everything. Have you been drinking today?
A little bit.
Okay. So what was your ultimate thought on that, Jason? Would you?
Well, he sounded serious to me. He sounded like a lot of the people that I've interviewed over the years about things generally sound sincere. I have a pretty good BS detector, which I developed as a journalist, and I hope works well with me when my daughter's a teenager. But he seemed really sincere.
Well, and that's the thing, is that, how would we know otherwise, to be perfectly honest? If he was successful, how it'd be proving a negative, trying to disprove it.
Right. Well, it's with anything, you need evidence. You got to have evidence, and something that really frustrates me is that people view evidence differently than what it actually is. I spoke at a paranormal conference this weekend, actually yesterday, and there were a lot of people there with really solid evidence about some great EVPs, some photographic evidence of not just ghosts, but there was some nice photographic evidence of a UFO. The guy had a recording of a Bigfoot. I'm going to take them at face value right now, saying that they weren't throwing BS at us, but it's not evidence in the way that you're going to prove it to the world. Right. It's evidence to you, and it's solid, but a scientist is going to say, I can't do anything with this.
Right. I mean, if he had come back with the winning lotto numbers on a series of dates from the future and said on this date the number's going to be this, and had enough sequences, then people would say, okay, that's beyond coincidence. But
what about the guy that's won it like 20 times? You think he's a time traveler and brought back the numbers? I mean, it's possible. Why not?
Right, but the thing is, with scientists, you've got to do it in a lab in a controlled environment, and it has to be repeatable. You got to do it over and over again. Yeah. I don't have to, have a scientist tell me that ghosts exist because I saw one. Okay? But in order for them to prove it exists, they have to have controlled conditions and have to repeat their experiment over and over and over again. And ghosts are jerks. Okay? They're not going to do that. They're not going to come in the lab and let a scientist deal with them for 6 months.
No command performances.
Right. So that's what I get frustrated with Bigfoot investigators, because if you're walking around in the woods and you find scat and you find hair, that's awesome. But unless you have a body, science isn't gonna pay any attention.
Right. That's the unfortunate thing there. Again, it's almost proving the negative.
Yeah, well, and a lot of Bigfoot investigators, and I appreciate the fact that they don't want to take a gun out and shoot it, because, unless you're going to eat it, which I don't know, Bigfoot sounds like it'd be a little gamey. Unless you're going to eat it, why would you shoot this near human creature? But truthfully, you got to shoot that bastard and bring it in, or
you can't say bastard.
Ground rules, man, ground rules.
Hug.
You can say dirty SOB, but you can't say bastard.
I think you two need to meet.
No, because we'd be in jail. Oh, here's Bigfoot carrying a naked woman. That's really weird. Why? There's a picture.
No, and I say good for him.
Huh?
I say good for him.
Good for him.
Well, here's a picture of a Bigfoot turd. I don't know how I feel about that. Why would you even take a picture of a poop? I mean, come on.
Well, take it to the lab and let them analyze it and say, it's not anything else. But again, they just said it's unidentified.
Yeah, they never say it's Bigfoot. Because how can they don't know.
That's right.
They don't have any, evidence.
Well, someone that's a Bigfoot investigator needs to learn how to actually do good net traps or whatever and catch one.
Well, yeah, it's got to be a pretty strong trap to trap an 8-foot tall, 500-pound beast. Teaching at a university, I know how universities look at things, and I really applaud Dr. Jeff Meldrum. I think he's from, is it Utah State maybe? He's a scientist who has gone out there and said, with the evidence that I've seen, Bigfoot exists, and he does research on it. So, if somebody's gonna come out with this, proof of Bigfoot, it's somebody like Jeff Meldrum.
Well, I guess that kind of goes to the question of, are any of the paranormal phenomena really going to be taken seriously until academia really starts investigating?
No, I don't think so. I really don't think so. And unless you totally bypass academia, and you bring in a crashed flying saucer to the parking lot of a news station, and they broadcast it before the government or whoever gets a hold of it.
Right. And that's the thing. And even then, it's something tangible. But when you're looking at ghosts and other more intangible phenomena, I think it's going to be hard to get any serious credibility from scientific community until academia gets behind it.
Right, and it's people will view scientists as not wanting to deal with the paranormal at all, and completely poo-pooing it. Can I say poo-poo? I just said poo-poo.
Well, I said poo, so you can say poo-poo.
All right, thank you. But there are a lot of scientists out there who want to prove this sort of stuff. I have a couple of friends of mine in the chemistry and physics department at the university, which is great working at a university in a small town. You can go out and drink beer with physicists. It's pretty cool. But anyway, these guys are ghost hunters. They go out and with their equipment to try and prove this stuff. And it's got to be somebody like that who does it before it's taken seriously.
I agree. For instance, by day I'm an attorney. My alter ego, Lisa/John, works on computers, etc. We try to be serious part of the time.
Oh, sorry.
But I agree. It's one of those things that it's going to be. It's the chicken and the egg, which is going to come first there, and that makes it really hard. But
should we discuss that for a while? What did come first, chicken or the egg? That's hard.
With you, I'd say the egg.
Why the egg?
Do I even have to say it?
Because I'm egg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a way that you can figure out and answer this question. Order a chicken and order an egg from Amazon and see which one comes first.
I like it.
Well, I have free 2 day though, so that's not a fair analogy. They're both going to come the same day.
But which one's going to come by drum?
Would that solve it?
I don't know.
If it's got 42 tattooed on the outside of it, then I don't know. But go ahead, next question.
No, I'm going to let you ask the next question after that.
So let's talk about Bigfoot. So have you seen Bigfoot with a naked woman? Because really, that's all I'm finding on the internet. It really doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, no, I've never seen Bigfoot with a naked woman.
I haven't either.
What do you think is the most credible evidence that Bigfoot does exist?
Well, I really like and I don't remember the guy's name, but he was a police officer who did the forensics, and he has looked at hundreds of plaster cast of Bigfoot footprints, and he said that all the ridges on the foot. I mean, if you are faking these footprints, you are doing a masterful job, putting all the little all the ridges on the foot, designing the foot to where the footprint to where, yes, the way this creature's walking would support a 500-pound beast. And then the next foot has completely different ridges because it's the right foot instead of the left foot,
Right.
and it's so improbable that some of these are faked. I really think that's some of the best evidence. And also, to answer that question a little more seriously, I think that the best evidence whatsoever is not in a freezer. Yeah, as long as Tom Biscardi is nowhere near the evidence, it's probably pretty credible. I'll go with that.
That's hard to argue.
Okay, so my next question is: he's an 8-foot tall, 500-pound beast, right? How the hell is he staying hidden? I mean, how? Where? I mean, I realize there's a lot of the Earth that we haven't explored yet, but still.
Well, and which is a good question. I mean, that is a huge beast.
That's a big word.
Yeah. Some of the land where these creatures supposedly live in the Pacific Northwest. Holy shit! I mean, holy poop.
You didn't say shit. You just.
Oh, that's right. I just can't say damn. There are spots that people have never been before. How about the skunk ape down in down in the swamps in Florida? I mean, there's lots of places for these things to hide, and the fact that there probably aren't many of them is something else. Hell, I went. I spent a lot of time in Colorado, and they have bear and moose there. I've never seen a bear or a moose.
I mean, that's true. Even well-known animals aren't necessarily just seen all the time in the wild. So,
well, and if these things are, as they're speculated, being a species of ape, they're smarter than your average. I'm not going with bear. They're smarter than your average creature.
right, and probably is smarter than some of us talking here today.
You don't have to be so hard on yourself, really.
I know.
You're a lawyer. You did well. So, my question is, all right, so at some point it's got to procreate, right? And so there has to be more than
Well, that's why he's carrying the naked woman.
Yeah, but that boy's got to stink. I mean, he's 8 foot tall, 500 pounds. He can't possibly bathe correctly. And he's furry.
And that woman was smiling.
Yeah, and she was enjoying herself. I mean, it wasn't that kind of enjoying herself, but enjoying herself. Well, I can show you the picture. It's really disturbing. It really is. So, I mean, my question is there's got to be enough of them to at least procreate, so where? I mean, there has to be Somebody's got to have evidence of this somehow, some way. It's impossible that it can't not exist or not have evidence if it does exist.
Well, I've heard estimates anywhere from a population of 12 to 20,000 potentially in North America. That I got, I think I got that from the BFRO, the Bigfoot Research Organization, and I have no idea how they came to that number. But North America is a really big place.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of large mammal species that are endangered that have a small breeding population of like the rhinos are less than 100, or white rhinos less than 100 in the world, that kind of thing. So
yeah, but we've seen a white rhino.
Yeah, but they hide in forests and mountains, so that might be part of it.
Okay, Bigfoot, if you're watching right now, you need to come on our show. Seriously.
Now, when it comes to all of the aspects of the paranormal, I think if something is going to be proven scientifically, it's going to be Bigfoot.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. I think that's got a real good chance. Or if a UFO sits down in front of a TV station and someone comes out and talks. But the more ephemeral phenomena, I think it's a much harder argument to make everyone believers. That kind of leads into, I want to talk a little bit, you should devote an entire book to shadow people. But what are your thoughts on shadow people?
Oh, I've got lots of them. When I was a kid, the second thing that really got me involved in the paranormal, at least being curious about it, was I saw shadow people for a short period of time over probably about 5 to 6 months in my bedroom. I'd be going to sleep. I mean, it wasn't, I woke up from a dream. No, it wasn't no hypnagogia right there. It was none of that, because most of the time I was just getting ready to go to sleep. I had sat in my bed, pulled the covers up, turned off the light, and was getting ready to lay down, and boom, I saw them. And living out in the country, we could keep our blinds up, our curtains pulled, because nobody was around to peek in our windows, unless it was Bigfoot. And so if the moon was out, my room was gray. I could see everything. I mean, this is going to show my age here, but I could, perfectly see my Farrah Fawcett poster on the wall. I could see all this stuff, and I remember the first time I saw them, I just sat down. I hadn't even laid back yet. I sat down, turned off the light, and the corner of my room was dark. And I sat there, and something moved. And for some reason, I lay down and pulled the covers up to my neck, and a man walked out of the corner of my room and by my bed. And it was blacker than night. I mean, it was again, my room was gray, so it really stood out. A human-shaped shadow. In my head, I called it a shadow person because that's what it looked like. That's what it was to me. And it walked by my bed just a couple of feet from me laying there and into the hallway. And I was terrified because there was a man that just walked through my room, and I screamed for my dad, and he dropped a couple of choice words and flipped the light, because he was already asleep, and he flipped the light on, and he walked through this hallway that the shadow person had just walked into, and I'm thinking, oh no, I just killed my dad, because he's walking through this hallway where this shadow person walked through. But of course Dad didn't see anything, and he told me to shut the hell up and go back to bed. But I saw these things, like I said, over a period of about 5 to 6 months. Sometimes there was only one, sometimes there was 5 or 6 walking in a procession, and they never noticed me. It seemed like they were just going from point A to point B, and my room was in the middle.
Right.
And about as to my thoughts, I interviewed about 250 experiencers for my book, Darkness Walks, The Shadow People Among Us. And I noticed that some of the experiences were really different. Some were like mine. I called this type of shadow person benign shadows. Other ones were they felt like, the people I interviewed felt like these shadow people were feeding off of them. feeding off the fear that they were generating. Some of the shadow people had blazing red eyes and were just terrifying. Other ones, people were just, I mean, they were just sitting in the room. And they noticed, they felt they weren't alone, and they looked up, and there was a shadow person peeking around the corner at them. And whenever this shadow being noticed that the shadow person was being observed, it got scared and ran away. So, I mean, what are these things? In my opinion, there are a number of different things. Some behave like residual ghosts. Other ones, like I said, walk from point A to point B. There are lots of those. I mean, it's like, maybe they're interdimensional travelers, possibly, and the shadow, they might be exactly like us, but the places where the dimensions blur, that's all we can see of them. I interviewed experts in Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, Hinduism, American Indian shamanism, and the shadow people fit into all of these religions. In Christianity, they're demons. In Islam, they're jinn. And the expert in Buddhism I talked with, he said, we don't discuss these. We know what they are, but we don't talk about them. I'm like, really? But I never found out. The Cherokee shaman I spoke with said that where medicine people were healers, when healers start using their powers for greed, they change into something that's less than human and different from human, and they can appear as these shadow beings, and that they're wicked and greedy. And that explanation is probably one of the scarier ones, because he said, yeah, normally, you can run into one at Walmart, you can't tell him from a normal person, but later he might, be in your bedroom all, dark, looming over your bed and feeding off your energy. So, in my opinion, the shadow people are a number of different types of entities that just happen to look the same.
And I kind of agree with you there. I know when I was researching one of my books, I was talking to some of the elders with the Seneca Cayuga tribe, and they refer to shadow people as Ewok, and they consider them a physical being, but benevolent. And they distinguish them from other spirits. But where they say ancestor spirits, it's like a spirit, they actually feel the shadow people have a physical aspect to them as well. I always thought that was interesting.
Yeah, there are so many different types. Well, another that we have in explanations, but another entity that I didn't bring up was the Hat Man. I don't know if you've heard of this.
Oh, yeah.
Right, he's got the same characteristics as other shadow people, but he looks like he's wearing a fedora and an old-time suit. And I've talked to people all over. I mean, from Brazil and Australia and all places in between who have seen this entity. When I interviewed psychologists about what these entities could be and how they're seen over different continents. Of course, they said the people who witnessed the shadow people weren't actually seeing a shadow person. They were seeing, something in their mind. And the reason that it looked, the same with the fedora and the old suit was because this is an iconic image that has been all over the media for decades upon decades.
I kind of disagree with that. I'm sure you do too, because the multiple hat men that I've seen in different hats, they're not always a fedora, but that seems to be the most consistent. And there is actually one in this house that we're in right now that has, I would call it a fedora or an old-time slouch hat or something. But yeah, I mean that's pretty common. But
yeah, I don't think it's media driven, because it seems like a lot of people that we ran into that have had experiences with hat men really weren't aware of hat men before their experience, and so.
I mean, we have a lot of people that come on tours that are around or like watch paranormal shows and so forth and so on that have never heard of a hat man. So I don't know if that's necessarily I believe that. But.
I mean, you could almost go back to the theories on time travel and, the government agents that are going through time or something,
Well,
sort of the Men in Black phenomena.
You say that, but it actually could be something to that nature, or even somebody remote viewing. I thought that before too.
That's true.
I thought that about shadow people in general, but
I think I guess that's a possibility, kind of like almost interdimensional. Kind of the same theory is that because we're seeing them through a different dimension or at a distance, that it comes across that way.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. I didn't think about that dimensionally. Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms.
Well, and I don't know about you, Jason, but we find it in locations that we investigate that often activity almost seems to go in time loops, that you'll have activity related to an early time period at a location, and over a series of months it kind of moves forward and then will loop back around. And so I almost wonder if perhaps one reason we see these paths, which we associate with past time periods, are that we're seeing two different moments in time almost crossing.
Yeah, I don't know, and it's just the fedora always, always thought was interesting. I mean, only Humphrey Bogart and Indiana Jones ever looked good in a fedora. I have talked with with some experiencers about the Hat Man who didn't wear a fedora. I've talked with somebody who saw a Hat Man wearing a derby. Again, an old-timey hat, who wears derbies anymore. And a guy who he and his brother, when they were children, saw this entity. The brother stopped seeing it, but this guy kept seeing it throughout his life. They called it the cowboy. Because the hat, it was fedora-like, but it was bigger, more like a cowboy hat.
I know someone who's told me stories of living in a house probably maybe 20 years ago now, that in an area that had a huge ranch years and years ago, and she had a shadow man that would appear in the house that looked as if he was wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. So,
that was her.
I talked with actually one of my former students told me about a Hat Man encounter he had that was not really a frightening encounter, because he and a friend were playing tennis and it was late at night. It was like 11 o'clock at night. Who plays tennis at 11? But the court was well lit, and on the other side of the fence was a dumpster, and now, leaning on the dumpster, I don't know if you've seen these. They're popular in rural areas, at least in the Midwest. It's a silhouette. It's a cutout. It's a silhouette of a cowboy leaning. Okay, and there was one of those, and he figured that somebody had just thrown one of those away, and it was leaning against the dumpster. And they just got finished with their last game, and he said he looked over to the dumpster, and that two-dimensional cowboy that he thought was a cutout stood up and walked away.
Yeah, I've seen shadow men, walking through places that I've investigated and so forth before, and it almost looks like, a two-dimensional shadow, but that is hovering three-dimensionally. I know that doesn't make sense, but
well, and a lot of these cases the shadow people have been described as two-dimensional. I interviewed, I can't remember her name, but her group, and this has been a few years ago when I talked to her, so I don't remember what the name of the group is, but they were at the Waverly Sanatorium. And she was in a hallway, and there was moonlight coming in, so she could see everything pretty well. And she saw a shadow person slinking along the wall. And she had a flashlight, and she flicked it on and turned it and pointed it at the shadow being. And the shadow, she said it looked like, one of the flat fridge magnets, a bendable magnet. She said it looked like a fridge magnet had pulled itself off the wall it was two-dimensional, and it looked at its arm, and she said it hit, where the beam of light hit it, and it ran off down the hallway. But that I thought was a pretty good description of the two-dimensional shadow person. Was a fridge magnet.
Yeah, I mean that they do kind of appear that way at times. Now, I have investigated a place where, actually 2 different places where the shadow people actually will run at people, which I find very unusual, because typically shadow people, like I said, they head the other way when you're around, if they recognize that you're there. I haven't quite decided what I think of the ones that actually run at you, almost straight at you, through you type situation.
I think it's kind of like you have some people that would, you come in my house, I'm going to run at you, where some people may run away. It's the same logic, I think. I don't know that there's anything more to it than that in my mind, but
No, I'm not necessarily saying that either. It's just that it seems to be pretty uncommon for them to run at you. They seem to be more shy and run the other way.
I scare a lot of people.
Well, that's true. That's true. I'm not denying that.
It happens.
Have you come across any situations, Jason, where anyone was actually harmed by a shadow person?
Well, very, very few. That seems to be pretty rare. There have been a couple of cases. People have told me that they've, been grabbed by a shadow person and had like welts, the shape of a hand on their arm. The only case of a person that I've ever gotten who was actually harmed was a woman in Australia, and she was lying in bed, and she was a young woman, had a roommate, and they were both asleep. They had beds in the same room. It was a very small apartment, and she said she woke to a really cold touch, and she looked up, and there was a shadow being over her, and it sexually assaulted her. And she couldn't scream. Finally, she was able to find her voice and screamed. And her roommate woke up, and she said her roommate saw the shadow being, started screaming too, and then the thing just it went away. It disappeared.
That's weird.
Yeah, I mean that is. I mean, of course, I guess again. I mean, there are instances of spirit, having adverse effect on people.
Well, or this also reminds me of something else that you all brought up a few minutes ago, which was, maybe they're remote viewers, and that's what we see of them. There is one case in my book of a woman who kept seeing the shadow person, and then after she saw it a few times, the shadow person had changed. And it started appearing more and more human-like, and she could see definition. And at the end, she saw that it was a man. It was a white male with curly blonde hair. And the last time she saw it, the last time I talked to her, it spoke with her, and he said that he was. They'd never met. He could astral project, and he's been watching her, and that they were going to meet soon. And that's creepy. That's really creepy. Having an astral stalker.
Yeah, I mean.
Can you get a restraining order for that? I wonder. You're the lawyer.
That might be a little hard to prove. Serving the order might be the problem.
It could be rough.
Unless they just volunteer their address in California or wherever. Yeah, I'll let you go talk to a judge about that.
Yeah, I want to see. Yeah. A couple of judges around here would be like, what?
Jason, what do you think is... do you think that these phenomena are getting more prevalent or more aggressive with people? So I know some people are kind of trying to argue that things with shadow people are moving that direction. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I had a discussion about this very thing this weekend at the conference where I spoke, and the person who was arguing with me is convinced that these things these paranormal occurrences, period, are on the rise. And my opinion is, we have communication now like we have never had it. And that is coupled with the fact that the paranormal is now accepted by more people than ever. And I think more people are just talking about their experiences than they used to.
Well, I do too, and I think, of course, it being covered more prevalently in the media and with the TV shows, I think makes people more comfortable talking. I know, I can go out in the public wearing a team shirt. I've been stopped at gas stations, restaurants, grocery stores, etc., by people just wanting to tell their story. And I think it's because there's lots of people out there that believe and have stories that that have been hesitant to talk in the past that are more likely to now.
Well, I agree with that completely. When I researched my first book on the paranormal, it was tough to get people to talk with me. But after my book came out and people saw that I wasn't going to make fun of them for telling their experiences, I had people just coming out like crazy to tell me their stories.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I agree. I think it's just, the publicity that the paranormal has gotten in the last 10 years has been pretty wild. And I think people's spiritual beliefs have changed too, so that helps them be more open with things like that they don't necessarily think that it's the devil or wrong to think that way or to see these things. Unless, of course, you're Bailey, who's sitting beside us. But, so I throw your name in there.
Yeah, I think that does have a lot to do with it. Jason, what do you think? Do you think that there are any particular kinds of experiences that are more prevalent? I know we're all from Missouri here talking, but say in the Midwest, what do you see as the most prevalent experiences?
Rednecks.
Paranormal experiences.
Rednecks.
There's nothing wrong with rednecks. When the end of the world happens, rednecks are going to save the human race. You know that, don't you?
That's not true.
Yes.
They ain't smart enough to do nothing, dog.
Yeah.
It's not redneck. I grew up on a farm, so I am. See that? Red.
Yeah. Well, so did I, and I know for sure more rednecks have guns than anybody else on the planet. So, except for the military. So anyway.
That's debatable. Yeah.
That's what I love. Love that scene from Zombieland where they find the Hummer and it's full of automatic weapons and Tallahassee screams, "Thank God for rednecks!"
Yeah, I came home from a class today and my son was watching that. That's pretty funny.
That's true. That's true.
But the most prevalent, I think it is and always has been ghosts. I mean, probably there's a lot of weird things in the sky, but not as many people look up as you'd think. So I think ghosts are probably the most prevalent.
Well, since we are all in Missouri and we're just a few miles away, what are your thoughts on the spook light?
I went down there. I researched it for my book, and I love the stories of the spook light, and I've interviewed people from different decades who've seen this thing. So I'm sure there's something there. I mean, there's something enough there that the government researched it back in 1946, but I didn't see it. I didn't see it. I went down there.
But that could be alien. That would explain you.
We have 2 minutes left, and I want to talk about aliens. Okay. We're going to have to have you back so we can talk about aliens.
Ask the question.
Well, it's too late now. I don't have enough time to talk about aliens. In 2 minutes. Aliens is a deep subject.
Jason, will you come back and talk about aliens with us?
I would love to. Yeah, aliens, fur 'em or again 'em? I'm fur 'em.
Fur aliens?
Yes.
Oh, I like fur aliens myself. The floppy ones really freak me out.
Yeah, although Carl Sagan, astronomer Carl Sagan, was really against extraterrestrials visiting Earth at least. He did say something about life in the universe which I thought was really, really cool. If we're the only, I mean, given all of the galaxies in this wide universe, all of the stars, all the planets, if we're the only intelligent life out there, that is a tremendous waste of space.
Exactly. I agree. There's so much out there that we haven't seen and we don't know about. I mean, there's no possible way that we are the only ones. And I hope we're not.
Right. I completely agree with that, and I absolutely hate it when scientists, are posed with the question about, are extraterrestrials visiting us, and they're like, well, they can't possibly get from, the nearest habitable planet possibly to here. And I'm like, what? You don't know that? 100 years ago, we couldn't get from here to there, on our own freaking planet, but, so we don't know this.
Well, and the fact that we're taking pictures now of all this inside of our expanse of space, and you're telling me that, they can't, they're probably way far more advanced than we are. So,
there could be civilizations that are 1 billion years old. And we've been putting rocks together for 10,000 years here. So,
I'm hoping we find the Amazon culture.
Another,
yes.
Or the one that just made contact in Brazil.
No, the Amazon women.
Mm-hmm. Of course you do.
Hey, it's 6:55. We gotta wrap up.
Jason, we really appreciate Kevin and talking with us, and we definitely want to have you back and talk about aliens, and so you can blow John's mind.
And I will send you a list of do's and don'ts on cuss words.
Okay. See, we should have done that ahead of time. And we need the safe word. Okay.
He forgets to read the memo.
I forgot this one.
Well, thank you all for having me on the show. I've had a good time.
Thanks for coming, man. We really liked having you. It was awesome.
I really enjoyed it, and I'm supposed to say hi from Ryan. So.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, Ryan's a good man.
Yeah, I was supposed to ask you for any secrets on him, but you can save that for next time.
Yeah, I'm not spilling anything. I don't tell stories on friends.
Yeah, Ryan's a good guy and a good friend of ours too. So we appreciate. Thank you, Jason, and we will be talking to you soon.
All right, excellent. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Jason. You too. And everybody stay tuned for Selena and Rowan. Closer to Death, she has Patty Starr, owner of Ghost Chasers International and Scarefest.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.